It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
40-year-old Brian, looking back and trying to type this up for you guys, it was awesome because I've shared with you guys, I've gotten, since I crossed the 40 mark, much more sentimental in life.
And let's be honest, you were kind of already sentimental to begin with, but you've certainly moved.
I think it's definitely the 40s was across. I don't think I was as sentimental. I thought I was more of a warrior through my 30s. I mean, you could probably sense that when you guys go and watch the 20-year-old, the 30-year-old. I do want you to have the feeling that you can conquer the world. Sure. I want you to feel like you can run through walls because of how much opportunity is out there for you. But it is going to come to you in your 40s that you realize, okay, a lot of time has now passed. I can still accomplish a lot, but a lot of my life has kind of been set. I mean, you really do. And you kind of hit that fork in the road where either the life is going to be glass half full, okay, meaning that you're kind of starting to see where everything is developing, the plan that you enacted in your 20s and 30s is taking shape, or you might be in that glass half empty fork of the road where you go, man, how did I get here? Yeah. I mean, I think there are people, and that's where those midlife crises, that's where you see more marriages fall apart, that's where you see people making crazy decisions with their careers and other things, is because they just wake up one day and go, I don't know how this all happened. And that's because they weren't giving the thoughts in their 20s and their 30s. Or maybe I don't want to blame it all on bad decision making. Sometimes life just happens. Yeah. You know, bad medical things happen. A career thing happens where you have your dream job, but then the rug gets ripped out from underneath you. This is definitely the time when you're in your 40s where you're past that warrior stage of your life. And now you kind of have that wisdom of what does the next chapters of my life look like. So let's kind of jump into this. Here's the first one I put on here was the failure. The biggest financial mistake is the failure of recognizing the power of planning. Okay. And I'm a Gen Xer. Grew up in the grunge phase. Y'all know you go out there and watch our episode on how awesome Dave Grohl is. And I'm still hoping if I say that enough that Dave Grohl will eventually see it. Yeah. I mean, I thought, I saw Foo Fighters when they came in town here to Bridgestone.
You thought he might have mentioned you?
Well, I was pretty close because I love Foo Fighters that much. And we did a lot of planning ahead to make sure we had good seats. I think we kind of made eye contact. So I don't know if he might have seen the YouTube channel.
You think he recognized you, maybe?
He might have, but he kind of made everybody. I think when he ran to the other side of the stage, he kind of made those people in the front seem like they were just as special as me. So I think it's just his skill set. But
Dave, if you want a tour of the office, have your people get in touch with our people. We'll set that up.
You know he comes to Nashville all the time. I mean, he's down in Memphis tasting barbecue just a few weeks ago, so there's no reason he can't stop by the Money Guy, and we'll hook you up. Tumblr. Oh, you're not even using the tumbler. I couldn't even use my display. Oh, where's the tumbler?
Mine's an ice water right now.
Okay, let's keep this thing going. But failure to recognize the power of planning, and here's where I was going before I went on this crazy tangent. Millennials understand the power of planning. Because I just talked about that Schwab research that was out there that said that millennials have 22% of them are hiring financial planners. Okay. 25% of baby boomers know the power of hiring a financial planner. Gen Xers, 16%. I mean, substantially lower.
No, you grunge. You're anti-establishment.
We're grunge.
Stuff,
we're definitely out there. We are outliers. So this is, if you guys are not going to make the right decisions, you're really limiting or you're handicapping what your potential future could look like. So I want to help you guys understanding why this is important. Because especially in your 40s, I've already told you, you've graduated past the warrior stage. Now, your life, it's heavy, guys. I will tell you as a 40-year-old, you think about career-wise, I have an enterprise here with employees, and you guys, even if you don't own your own business, you're probably in some type of leadership where you have a team that's looking up to you. So your decisions and your responsibilities are big in your 40s. Your family, you got kids probably. More than likely in your 40s, you got kids. You're trying to make sure you don't screw them up. I mean, believe me, all of us get our kids and we go, oh my gosh, nobody told me how this was all going to go down. Even if you come from a good family, you're realizing none of us really know what we're doing. I mean, as much as nobody likes to admit that, we all are just falling forward, hoping that this thing doesn't run off the rails at any point in time.
The most wonderful description of parenting I've ever heard.
No, it really is. And then you add on top of the career and the family stuff, this is also a time where you better be gelling what your retirement and financial life looks like, because otherwise this thing's going to get ugly in your 50s and 60s. It's really going to be ugly if you're not doing what you're supposed to. And then more than likely, by the time you're in your 40s, you've got your footprints in the community too. People know, you're trying to get involved with your church or with your civic organizations, with charities. I mean, there's a lot of balls in the air. That's why I picked on my 30-year-olds on the previous segment, and I said, don't go seeking complicated because complicated happens naturally.
Right.
Here is your proof. I just named off everything that kind of at night you wake up going, oh my God, did I get it all done today? Because life gets heavy in your 40s. So you better be understanding the power of planning because otherwise your life will just pass and a lot of this stuff will just not turn out as good as it should. Here's the next financial mistake I think 40-year-olds make is assuming you will live forever and not taking care of loved ones. I have got to tell you, I have had some very uncomfortable conversations where super successful spouses, husbands or wives, depending upon who makes the money. And by the way, in this day and time, there are no stereotypes.
It's not traditional.
Because,
That's right.
we see success from all angles. But one of the things that breaks my heart is when I will talk to the big earning spouse about, hey, you got to have life insurance, you got to have disability insurance, and all this other stuff. We realize we don't sell insurance. I don't want anybody hearing this going, man, another one of these insurance hack jobs. No, I just want you to have the protection. Right. And it breaks my heart when the income producing guy or girl will say,
I'm never retiring. I'm going to work forever.
It's fine. I love my job. Things are good. Why? I think that's an expense that's just unnecessary. And that stuff bothers me. It's the same thing. Wills, healthcare directives, because they don't want to have the uncomfortable conversation with their loved ones. They don't want to talk about, because maybe the spouses don't like each other's relatives, so they're worried about, believe me, if you have a hard time as spouses talking about what's going to happen to the children, think about what happens when you're not here.
That's right.
I mean, so go ahead and have those discussions early, because it doesn't get easier, and the ramifications from just sticking your head in the sand and avoiding it can be tremendous to your financial life. Here's another thing I put on here is another huge financial mistake I think 40-year-olds make is getting distracted and investing in things that you have no business messing with.
Yeah.
I think it's, I pick on the 20-year-olds because you're, and the 30-year-olds because you're trying to get into complex things because you think that's the sexy side of what success does. The same thing kind of carries over for 40-year-olds. There's a reason they have these things, and you guys in the medical field, please forgive me, but they're called dumb doctor deals for a reason. Yeah. Should I have said that out loud?
Well,
dumb doctor deals. I mean, there's all kind of private placements, sexy exotic investments that have doctors. I think these things, I would love to see that stat. I'd love to know the percentage of all these private placements that are funded through the medical field, whether it's doctors, dentists, and elsewhere. Did I go too strong with that?
No. And so one thing I think that's interesting is in your 20s and 30s, you want to be able to access some of this stuff. So you go seeking it, you go look for it. Well, in your 40s, there's a chance that maybe you've had some success and your income or your assets are at a level. Well, now you actually do qualify for some of these types of things, and rather than you having to go seek them out, they come and find you.
Yeah.
And you start getting bombarded with all of these once-in-a-lifetime opportunities or these private black box deals or these things that you can't miss out on. Rather than you going and getting them, they're just showing up on your doorstep. And you start buying into the hype of, oh, maybe I do need to do this thing now. Or maybe this is the time that I go get my hand in rental real estate or in property development or in those sorts of things.
And look, that's not to say a lot of these things actually go probably turn out pretty good. Right. I mean, me and my neighbors have some discussions all the time, and they've made lots of money. My only point on this is make sure you have your pyramid of building financial assets and checking the boxes. That was not a pyramid.
Your pyramid's a circle.
Well, that's because I didn't want to put the top on it, because that's where I was going next, was to put the top. You have to cover the base. You have to build your foundation.
Okay.
So then you can put your top. That's almost like doing YMCA.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah. You have to go on YouTube.com to see that.
If you're not watching this on YouTube, go watch those hand motions.
What I mean by that, though, is that these things can turn out well. I'm just trying to make sure you cover the foundational savings goals first. So in case these private equity deals where they're making you show that you're an accredited investor goes bad, it doesn't derail the rest of your financial life too. It doesn't mean these things are bad. They're not, I want to make sure you keep your priorities right.
Sure.
The last thing I'd put on here, I have so many people that want to talk to me about rental property. I think it's because if you go listen to shows on passive income, one of the easiest ways is through real estate.
That's right.
And look, real estate's outstanding. But
Sometimes.
if you don't, yeah, sometimes. But if you can't even caulk your own, house, or you have trouble fixing any plumbing in your house, you probably don't need to be buying a rental property because you're going to get taken advantage of by everything that goes wrong with this piece of property. So be careful. Just know what your limitations are and don't go getting distracted when you haven't covered your basic foundations. Here's another big financial mistake, not having discussions about money with family members. And this is twofold because you got to look up to your parents and you got to look down to the kids. Both of these boxes need to be checked. When your parents are getting a little bit older, this is the age where you better understand what they've got going on.
And what their wishes are. What are they hoping to accomplish? Because unfortunately, they too are going to begin being bombarded with folks who might not have their best interest at heart.
And also you need to find out, I got to tell you, I have seen several stories of clients where parents were getting older, and then they go in there and they start getting a handle of what their parents have going on financially. Or maybe it's just one parent because one's already passed away and they're getting a little bit older, where you find out that you have a parent that is hiding thousands of dollars in curtain rods there's all kind of crazy things. Or you find out that your parents are paying money to some scam because they don't realize it's a scam. You need to know what's going on with your parents' financial life so that you can give them the guidance or at least be part of the discussion. That doesn't mean you're trying to take away their independence. You're just trying to make sure that we're all having discussion on it.
And part of this is selfless and the fact that you want to help your parents and you want to make sure that their quality of life is higher. But there is a small portion of it that is selfish also, because if you don't get these things figured out now, you're going to have to figure them out at some point. And it's much easier to do when your parents are here and available.
So let's cut to the kids. You got kids, and I've picked on the 20-year-olds and told them, please get out of the house as fast as possible. I'm trying to give you guys a head start in your 40s who have, teenagers. You need to go ahead and start laying the groundwork so that they're going to make good financial decision-making from childhood so that they don't live and turn into economic outpatient care, adult children down the road. So go ahead and start making those investments now in your children when you're in your 40s so that they can hopefully be independent. Because that is, if you look at Millionaire Next Door, one of the principles of success that they talk about, the foundational items, is the fact of, are your adult children taking care of themselves? Because that's going to help you tremendously. So the next financial mistake that 40-year-olds are making, and this one is not financial, but it does have a financial impact, is neglecting your health.
Yeah. Yep.
This is one, Bo, I'm mid-40s now. I have recognized, and I went into my 40s knowing this is because I had a pastor who was not that much older. He was probably 6-7 years older than me. But I was in a small men's group with him, and he was sharing his journey because he was doing like half marathons and stuff. And people asked him, well, why did you start running? What got you in running? He goes, I turned 40. And I realized, that I needed to do something. I'd never been a runner. I'd never been an exerciser, but my father had approached me because he was, 50s, 60s and just did not have the same financial dexterity that he had when he was younger. And he pinpointed it to his 40s was that fork in the road moment. So this person manifested that into they started running.
Right.
Now, I don't have a desire. I hate running. I will tell you, if we started running right now, Bo, we'd get to the next block down in downtown Franklin.
You'd be ready to stop.
And my brain would already be trying to figure out why we could stop, excuses. So I have to find other things, join classes and or find something that keeps me motivated. And that's why I want to share with you guys. There's too many resources available right now out there to not get you involved with it. Whether you might have neighbors. I mean, one of the biggest, saddest things I miss about living in Georgia is I had like 3 neighbors that we'd all go work out together, like 2 to 3 times a week. We'd have Flex Friday on Fridays where we didn't do anything other than like completely
beach muscles.
Even though, guys, here's the thing. I did this for years with these guys. only one guy in this group but he looked like it before he started working out with us. I don't know if it's what was going on. So, but it's still fun, the camaraderie. And then I think there was health benefits to having that camaraderie. But then there's now apps. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's all kind of classes. There's probably maybe your community rec department is offering this stuff. So go find a way to get tied in. And then here's something that's cool that's come about in the last 3 to 5 years with this whole DNA. Unwinding of your DNA. You can now do the 23andMe and all this other stuff. Yeah. You can go be proactive to see what's going on with your health. And then also I'd say take advantage of the free physical. You know, part of the whole affordable healthcare reform is that your preventative care, like an annual physical, is now free.
Right.
I mean, it's prepaid. It's not really free. It's prepaid based upon your insurance. So go take advantage of that because it's better to know on the front end of stuff, even though it's really annoying when you go to the doctor and then they find something that you need to alter in your lifestyle. It's much better to find it as soon as possible than let something manifest and grow into something that could really derail your life.
And here's the deal. I'm not 40, so I can't speak for 40-year-olds. However, I do like to exercise, and I can speak as an authority in that aspect.
Me.
Just like when you start saving money in your 20s, and maybe you can't save $1,000 a month, but you can save $10 a month, and you can start out a little bit, and those little small changes will have big impact. In your 40s, starting to exercise is the exact same thing. Maybe you can't start lifting heavy weights all over your head and all that kind of stuff, but you can start walking every single day. Or you can go do an app and do couch to 5K, or you can do something to start. Don't let the excuse that, I'm too far behind, or I'm so out of shape, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. Start somewhere and you will be amazed at your progress.
And you're a meathead, so you can't say this, but for somebody who's been so out of shape that when you just basically picked weeds, you couldn't walk for 3 days. When you start working out, there's a lot of you get in your own head where you're scared to go to a gym. You're scared to do something because you're like, man, everybody will be looking at me. Everybody. Sure. Don't let that be. Nobody's paying attention to you. I guarantee you. That's the thing. I mean, it is one of those things where you get in your brain and you just don't want to start because you come up with all these excuses. But if you'll just start the process, coming from a position of how low I was, just get the ball rolling. Bo can't say that because he's always been in good shape, with his whole athlete background and stuff. But I can give you that advice. Just start the process and you'll thank yourself a month later. It happens that quick. A month later, you're like, man, I'm starting to feel good. I hate this, but I love it at the same time. So just do it. Do something like that and you'll be much more successful in all parts of your life. Right. I mean, I don't mean to go on the sidebar, but when I'm exercising and I'm healthy from a health standpoint, a lot of the financial stuff seems to, I don't know if I get more, it seems like more prospects show up. I mean,
the quality of the content is better?
I think that's better. I think my wife likes me better when I'm, even though I'm not sleeping as much because maybe I'm sacrificing sleep, it seems like things just are working better when you're healthy. Let's kind of close down the mistakes for 40-year-olds by talking about prioritizing investments. I've been doing this exercise now for the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds. I'm saying, what does $1 turn into when you're 65 years old? When you're 40 now or 45, you only have 25 years or 20 years, which is still a long time, but it's not the same as the 45 years or the 40 years that a 20 and 25-year-old has. So if you think about but the number drops again. When you're saving in your 40s for 65, I dropped the assumed rate of return down again. For a 20-year-old, I use 10%. Okay. 30-year-olds, I use 9%. For a 40-year-old, I dropped it down to 8%. Because remember, as the older you get, you are probably doing a glide path with your asset allocation where you're taking less risk.
Yep.
So you can't expect as much from your portfolio if you're dialing down that risk because you're doing this so you don't lose it all for the next great recession. Right. So a 40-year-old who puts $1 away, growing at 8%, and for the next 25 years, because you're counting until 65, the end of your 65th, is $1 turns into $7.
That's still pretty incredible.
It's not double digits. This is the first decade that is not double digits, though, because remember, your 20-year-old self, $1 turns into $88. I mean, talking about, woo. I mean, that's a Ric Flair whoop. I mean, that's big. I mean, $1 turns into 88. 40-year-old, just at 20 years, turns that $88 into $7. A 45-year-old, that $1 turns into $5. Okay. So you're starting to recognize, because here's the thing. if you're a person that made really good decisions when you're a 20-year-old, really good decisions when you're a 30-year-old, when we mention to you that your $1 is going to turn into $7, you're probably not freaking out because what that means for you, because remember, one of my financial goals, and I've heard a lot of you guys, I think you should set financial goals as soon as possible. I had one when I was 30 years old. I wanted to make $100,000. Sure. Didn't make it. It took me until I was 31, 32 to make $100,000. By the time I was 40 years old, I wanted to have $1 million liquid, not counting house. I wanted to have $1 million liquid. Didn't make that one either. It took me like 41 to reach something like that. I feel so weird saying that out loud. But you'll notice that if you take my example, if you reach $1 million liquid by the time you're 40, when I hear that $1 by the time I retire is going to be $7, you do the math on it, you're like, wait a minute, $7 million at 65.
That sounds pretty good.
That doesn't sound horrible.
That's right.
But think about this. What if you're the 40-year-old that has only $100,000 saved up? You fast forward that and you think about yourself at 65 and you're saying $700,000. I don't know if that's getting the job done.
Right.
So that's why I tell you, you have to recognize this is the time to wake up and understand that you have a lot of responsibility to put that army of dollar bills. So if you are one of those people in your 40s who didn't save like you were supposed to in your 20s and 30s, guys, it falls much more on your back to still let the money grow for you, but you also need to be saving. And that's why I tell you, if you're not doing 15, 20, 25% of your gross income and maximizing your employer match, maximizing all the retirement products like the Roth IRAs and so forth like that, you're really missing the boat because it's going to get even harder for your 50-year-old self and 60-year-old self.
That's right.
Kind of close out the 40s. As you can tell, this is a powerful decade, I think, for a lot of decision making. I'm in the middle of this one. It's still an exciting time where I think you have enough time with 20, 25 years in the future that you can correct a lot of mistakes you might have made in the past. So take advantage of that and have the opportunity to have that glass half full moment in your 50s and 60s and be successful and have the financial life you always wanted.